Let's think about that for a second. Someone like Schimmel, running for a seat on our nonpartisan state Supreme Court, still won't wholeheartedly denounce literal insurrectionists. Americans across races, places, and parties value our freedoms, watched in horror as violent insurrectionists attacked our country on January 6, 2021, incited by Trump and MAGA Republicans. Violence has no place in our politics. Trump's January 6 pardons are an impermissible power grab. And just weeks before January 6, 2021, 10 fake electors snuck into this very room, to submit fake votes and try to overturn Wisconsin's results. This has turned Wisconsin into ground zero for disinformation and anti-democratic attitudes that are plaguing our country. And I'm sick of it. It should be no question now to people of all parties that our elections are fairly run. It's upsetting to see someone like Schimmel pretend like his statements aren't in complete opposition to our judicial system. Our Constitution, our values, as Wisconsinites, they must mean something. All things that I imagine he claims to uphold. We have collective power. We demand accountability from our elected officials and those running to represent us. We need to demand better. We can and we will build a better state, one where the will of the voters is respected, where our needs are met, where we resist disinformation and fear tactics, where we love and respect our neighbors, and to decide for ourselves what our futures will hold. But this cannot be the way forward. This cannot be our way forward as a society. And so, with that, I want to turn it over to our first speaker. Sitting to my right here is Sam Liebert, who is the Wisconsin State Director of All Voting is Local. Sam dedicated years of his life as a clerk here in Wisconsin and understands the importance of preserving our democratic institutions. Sam, would you like to give some remarks?
Yeah, thank you for that, Nick. Thank you for that opening. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here today. Like Nick said, my name is Sam Liebert, and I'm honored to serve as the Wisconsin State Director at All Voting is Local Action. It's both a privilege and a solemn duty to stand before you in this historic space, in the very room where Wisconsin's fake electors convened back in 2020. This room serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of our democracy and the lengths to which some were willing to go to subvert the will of the people. I'm honored to share this moment with our special guest, former U.S. Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. Officer Dunn's bravery and unwavering commitment to protecting our democratic institutions during the January 6th insurrection should inspire us all. His presence today reminds us of the human toll and the sacrifices made to defend our democracy against violence and chaos. The events of January 6, 2021 were not just an attack on a building or a single moment in time, but they were an attack on our collective voice as voters. The insurrection was a brazen and egregious attempt to silence millions of Americans nationwide, to overturn the results of a free and fair election through violence and intimidation. It was election sabotage in its most dangerous and visible form, based on the rhetoric and actions of election deniers before that fateful day. What makes this even more alarming is the recent pardon of those who participated in that insurrection. And let me be clear, granting pardons to those involved in efforts to undermine democracy sets a troubling precedent for future accountability of those who try to stomp on our rights to cast a ballot. It sends a message that violent attempts to silence voters may go unpunished if accountability is influenced by political interest. The action of pardoning undermines the very foundation of our democracy, where the rule of law and the sanctity of the vote should stand above partisanship and political agendas. Our inability to overlook the troubling fact that Bob Spindell, one of the fake electors from 2020 who sat in this room, continues to serve on the Wisconsin Elections Commission, and this all goes hand in hand. The presence of individuals involved in election subversion on the commission raises serious questions about impartiality and undermines public trust in Wisconsin's elections. It is unacceptable that those who took actions threatening the solid foundations of our democratic processes remain in a position of authority that oversees our elections. This anti-democratic reality highlights the urgent need for accountability and reform to the Elections Commission. We cannot afford to normalize or overlook these actions because democracy is not guaranteed. It's a choice that we make every day through our words, our actions, and our vigilance. Failing to hold individuals accountable for efforts to undermine it risks encouraging future attempts to erode our rights and freedoms. Wisconsin's always played a crucial role in shaping the direction of our nation, and that responsibility continues to today. The actions of fake electors in our state were part of a larger effort to spread misinformation and disinformation about the 2020 election. Such efforts have sown division and distrust, but we have the power, as Nick said, to fight back by standing firm in our commitment to truth and justice. As we reflect on the lessons of January 6th and the events that led us here, let us also remember that our democracy is strongest when every voice is heard and every vote is counted. Together, we must ensure that those who speak to undermine our elections are held accountable and that our democratic principles remain steadfast and unshaken. Thank you. I hand it back to Nick.
And thank you, Sam, for those moving words. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Scott Thompson. Scott serves as staff counsel at Law Forward here in Wisconsin. Scott's leadership in the civil lawsuit against Wisconsin's fake electors led to a historic settlement agreement that included a public acknowledgement from the fake electors that their votes that were cast for Trump in 2020 were a part of an effort to overturn the results of the 2020 election and disrupt the peaceful transfer of power. I strongly encourage folks to check out the full report on Law Forward's website that dives deep into how the fake elector plot started right here in Wisconsin. Scott, would you like to share some remarks?
Absolutely. Thanks, Nick. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Scott Thompson, staff counsel at Law Forward. The 2020 presidential election was marred by perhaps the most extreme manipulation of the American democratic process in the history of our country. It was literally an attempt to overthrow the results of a presidential election. Since then, Law Forward, on behalf of our clients, pursued accountability and transparency to prevent this type of attack from ever happening again. Our litigation unveiled, as Nick alluded to, that the fake elector scheme, the conspiracy, whatever you would call it, it was hatched in Wisconsin and launched from here to the rest of the United States. And make no mistake, it culminated in an effort to refuse to count Wisconsin's valid electoral votes on January 6th, as well as the infamous attack on the Capitol. Now, you don't have to take my word for the seriousness of this event. The false slate of electors from Wisconsin, the 2020 Republican electors, they confirmed that the documents they signed in this room, their quote-unquote votes, were, and I'm quoting from their statement, used as part of an attempt to improperly overturn the 2020 presidential election results. This is the public statement that they released to settle our lawsuit. And it's a lesson to anyone who would attempt to minimize what happened. Even the individuals who were involved from the very beginning recognized the scheme for exactly what it was, an attempt to overturn a presidential election. So today, Law Forward joins its partners in condemning really any effort to immunize the actions of those who executed the fake elector scheme and those who mounted the attack on the United States Capitol. Our shared democracy demands better than this. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Scott. And to finish off the press conference, I want to introduce somebody that has been a hero to me since I got to find out just what this man has been doing beyond 2021. Former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn joined the U.S. Capitol Police in 2008. On January 6, 2021, he was one of the brave officers who protected the country as a mob of insurrectionists attacked the Capitol in an attempt to overturn the presidential election. Officer Dunn protected the country from the insurrection as he experienced physical attacks and racial epithets from those storming the Capitol building. In recognition for Officer Dunn's role in protecting the U.S. Capitol, President Joe Biden awarded him the Presidential Citizens Medal. This medal is the second highest award a civilian can get and is given by the President to U.S. citizens who perform exemplary deeds of service for their country or their fellow citizens. It is a treat and a privilege to have Officer Dunn here with us in the Capitol, in our Capitol, to talk about what he sees as a rising threat to our democracy. And so, Officer Dunn?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm truly honored to be here with some great community leaders, members of the press. Thank you. To be very candid, I wish that I wasn't here right now. However, this ongoing attempt to whitewash, downplay, normalize what happened on January 6th is ongoing and shows no signs of letting up. Republicans have often said that Democrats need to move on from January 6th. Republicans themselves have said we want to move on from January 6th. Every time Donald Trump gets the opportunity to speak about January 6th, he doubles down on it. It was a day of love. It was a day of peace. It was none of those things. Christopher Wray, the former director of the FBI, called the individuals who attacked the Capitol domestic terrorists. It's not lost on me the symbolism of sitting here in this room right now where the fake electors plot to steal the election. They failed in that sense. They tried to steal the election, stop the certification of the election on January 6th through physical force. They were there to stop the steal. They were there because Donald Trump told us to come here. Those are their words. They were there to hang Mike Pence. They wanted to kill Nancy Pelosi. Officers who tried to stop them were met with brutal assaults, were called traitors. So the symbolism that where this all started, in this room, it's not lost on me. I had the opportunity to be at the Atlanta State House, where they had another attempt of fake electors. So anytime that I have the opportunity to go anywhere to push back against what really happened that day and what continues to be a threat to our country, I'll do that. And that's what brings me here right now. Why Wisconsin, Harry? Public officials, anybody, start with that, anybody that attempts to call January 6th anything than what it was, an insurrection, a terrorist. Let's define insurrection real quick, because a lot of it wasn't insurrection. A violent uprising against the government. Full stop. That's what January 6th was. The police officers just happened to be in the way. But anybody that fails to accept that, acknowledge that for what that was, deserves to be called out, condemned. For individuals in a position to challenge that, it needs to happen. I don't know how I became this figure that I am. I wish that I wasn't the only person or one of the few that are speaking out, but it's important to speak out. They want you to be silent, and I refuse to do so. Let's go to the pardons. I'm all for criminal justice reform. Let's be clear. If somebody is getting sentenced to some type of jail that they don't deserve, or the crime, the punishment needs to fit the crime, and I believe that. The thing is, you have people that are supporting Donald Trump's decision to pardon the most violent offenders, all of the offenders from January 6th. The most violent ones who savagely, brutally beat police officers. Some of those people went to the Capitol with the intention of just doing that. Go back and look at the tape. The police were overwhelmed and outnumbered 59-1. I believe that was the number that our former police chief, Stephen Son, wrote in his book. For every 59 attackers, one officer. So if these individuals, some of these individuals, if their goal was to get inside the Capitol and just cause a little disruption, they had the opportunity to do so. But go look back at the tape. There are people doubling back and going and beating officers while they're down. So if they really wanted to just get in the Capitol, the officers were outnumbered and overwhelmed, and there was nothing that we could do about it. Donald Trump sided with those people, said, those are my people, let them in. Let them off the hook. I've been fighting for accountability from day one, to hold the people accountable for the people, the foot soldiers as they've been called, and also for the people that started January 6th. And I believe that was Donald Trump. That accountability won't happen. However, there's an opportunity to still get accountability for public officials who believe that Donald Trump's pardoning of these individuals was okay. And that's an individual that is seeking the Supreme Court here in the state. Brad Schimmel. He said that he's okay with Donald Trump's actions to pardon. And people said, why am I don't know to be very candid, I don't know Brad Schimmel's policy on anything else except for that he is okay with supporting the rioters who attacked me and my coworkers, period. And that is not okay. And that was bringing me here. And anytime I get the opportunity to push back against that, I will be doing so. So with that, I'll turn it back over and we go from there.
Before I open up the questions, I think the biggest thing that here in the state of Wisconsin that we're seeing right now is individuals that are seeking some of the highest offices here in our state that can't just call a thing for what it really is. And instead, they are playing into some big kind of playbook to try and embolden and try and uplift these really disgusting attacks on everyday people. Everyday people, like Officer Dunn here, who did not wake up thinking that he was going to have to be fighting for his life on a day when there was supposed to be a peaceful transition of power. And we have to call out the people that are doing this and uplifting these folks that are truly criminals, that are people that were doing violence towards people that were just trying to protect folks at the Capitol. And so, we'll open up to questions from the media if you have them.
Brad Schimmel says his position is that anyone who attacks law enforcement should serve their entire sentence. And then he also says he believes in the president's power to pardon. What do you make of that kind of walking the line on where
I'm glad that you asked that question. It's not walking the line, it's clearly playing both sides. If you believe that the individuals who attacked police officers should serve their sentence, then the only response to Donald Trump's pardons should be that they're wrong. He should not pardon them. And those words did not come out of his mouth. So he's attempting to play both sides. And that's what happened with with Donald Trump. If you show any sign of going against him, he makes people pay political prices. So maybe that's what he's doing. But he's playing both sides of the line. The only reasonable response for somebody who believes that people who attack law enforcement, the only response is the pardoning of them by the president is wrong.
So you asked why Wisconsin, and obviously you've chosen to be here, and you're talking about a candidate for state Supreme Court. Obviously January 6th was like a nationwide event. What makes a state Supreme Court race, in your opinion, so important to this issue of fake elections?
Well, it's personal to me. First of all, it's personal to me. Me and my co-workers were beaten. 4 committed suicide afterwards. It's very personal to me, the whole event of January 6th, especially with so many people having opinions about it that are based on lies told by the highest elected officials. So, like I said, anytime I get the opportunity to push back, I'll do it. Like I thought I was going to be a career police officer. I was a police officer for over 16 years. I quit. I ran for Congress. I started a PAC. I believe in pro-democracy initiatives. And if that means coming out to Wisconsin, Wisconsin, the epicenter for anytime anything happens in Wisconsin, it's always national news. Plus, y'all got some good food here too, so it's always a great time. And it's not freezing cold here, so it makes it a little easier right now. But I think it's important to always, we need people that will show up and that will speak out against things when they're wrong. I wish more people would do it, so I wouldn't feel like I'm not doing it by myself, clearly. I'm sitting here with some fantastic leaders, but anytime I get the opportunity, I'll be there. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Nevada, it doesn't matter. But this just brings me here right now.
I just want to follow up on that question. I mean, while this event took place at our nation's capital, this race has become a national race, and that we see Elon Musk tweeting about it. We're getting ready to see unprecedented money get poured in here. We've already begun to comb through the campaign finance reports, and they are on track to be able to break the last record, which was about $56 million. So we are in the national spotlight yet again, and it falls on what happened in this room to then cause an insurrection to take place on January 6th. And so, again, I mean, I can't thank Officer Dunn enough for being able to give his insight and being willing to travel here to be able to share his truth, because it's not being heard enough. And there's a real opportunity here with our April Supreme Court election to be able to really find out where these individuals that are going to be in 10-year seats, they get to decide case law over our lives, where they stand on an issue that should be as clear-cut as insurrections are bad. People that hurt police officers should be in jail, shouldn't be given pardons. I swear if I did it, I get the book thrown at me. So there's no way that we should be uplifting these people that were causing criminal acts and hurting and killing and causing damage that we can't even begin to think of, because we're only 4 years out from it.
Yesterday, the interim U.S. Attorney in D.C. ordered a review of the prosecutions of the rioters. I wanted to see what you thought of that. If you want to participate in that process at all, to provide them with your perspective on what happened. And I guess generally, if you think there's an attempt to rewrite the history of January 6th and what the ways are to fight that if there is such an effort.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that Donald Trump has appointed people. I feel like the litmus test to be in the Donald Trump circle, appointed, anything, it's cabinet, anything appointed by Donald Trump is, what is your stance on January 6th? I stand by this. I don't believe Donald Trump ran for president to serve the American people. I believe he ran for president to escape accountability. And he is doing now is, he said this is not my words, he said he wanted retribution against the individuals that went after him. And that's clearly what he's doing. He doesn't believe that it was a faulty investigation. I mean, I don't know the inner workings of the Justice Department, but those are career civil servants who believe in, I believe, take their oaths very serious. If you look at the last Justice Department, they prosecuted more Democrats in political crimes than they did Republicans. It just happened that Donald Trump, you know, he won the presidency. He is the president. We didn't see a group of Kamala Harris supporters attack the Capitol on January 6th. In fact, every Democrat in the House, they didn't object to any state. They certified the election without a hinge. But this is clearly payback, retribution for the people that did their jobs. And he fired them. He fired them. He fired every prosecutor that was involved in any case. And that's problematic.
So how do you push back against that?
What we're doing now, I mean, Donald Trump, he controls the Justice Department. We need our elected officials in the Senate when they do these confirmations, when they move to confirm Pam Bondi, to make sure that they press her on those issues. And that's where we're at right now. We have a lot of people that are being Donald Trump loyalists and not loyal to their constituents and loyal to the Constitution. And I think that's where the problem is. That's another reason why I'm here, not just for this race and why I started my PAC. I believe that we need to have individuals representing us across this country that serve the will of the American people and not of Donald Trump.
I don't know if anybody else wants to follow. Oh, quick to you, Patrick. My thing is that the wins and the victories for our democracy are going to come at the local level. We can't look to a federal administration that is encouraging anti-democratic behavior. We have to, at the grassroots level, state and local, be able to uplift and educate Wisconsinites from every corner of the state about this, and be able to develop a real movement that is willing to call out bad actors when they are doing bad things and not be afraid. Because I think right now, people are afraid. People don't know what to do because they're fearful of being prosecuted. And we're watching ICE raids happen all across this country right now, including in Wisconsin. And people don't want to rock the boat and then become a target. But the thing is that if you look at history, what is that led to people if people stand there silently and don't do anything? Like, I don't want us to enter a place where this golden age of America ends up being an oligarchy or a dictatorship. It needs to be a land of the people. We are a democracy, and we can show people that it can function here in Wisconsin, local and state. And so that's how we're going to push back.
For Harry, Brad Schimmel's a former attorney general. He's endorsed by, I think, 70 sheriffs of the state, a number of police unions. He's running as the law enforcement candidate. How does that make you feel as a former police officer, given the way he's approaching the January 6th episode?
To be very candid, it feels right on cue and right at home. I was a member of the Fraternal Order of Police, and the FOP endorsed Donald Trump. They came out after the pardons on the first day, January 20th. They came out with a statement, or maybe the day after, I'm not sure, but it was right after, condemning it. The problem that I have is Donald Trump said he was going to do this. That this was a campaign promise that he's been saying for over 2 years, or whenever he announced his candidacy officially. That shows a lack of no responsibility by the agencies that are backing these individuals. They knew their stances on where they stand about pardoning people who attacked police officers, and yet they still supported them. That's problematic to me. So that means, one, that it wasn't important enough then, they didn't believe it, or they weren't paying attention. I mean, it has to be one of those three things. But it's typical. You can't support an individual that believes it's okay to pardon people who attack police officers. You can't support that and also say you claim to back the blue. Like and that back the blue thing on another, it's just a slogan. It's just a slogan to ramp people up, but show me through your actions that you back the blue.
I'm wondering what you make of Republicans who say that they're perhaps uncomfortable with the sweeping nature of the pardons, the fact that they went to violent offenders, but are unwilling to withdraw support for Trump or, condemn Trump. What do you say to those Republicans? What sort of actions do you recommend they take?
But that's what I said. It's political. I don't like using this term, but forgive me, I don't know another way. It's political suicide for an individual to go against Donald Trump. Look at Liz Cheney, as conservative as she is, Adam Kinzinger. These individuals no longer have, I think in the House, please somebody fact check it, 12 or 13 individuals that voted to impeach Donald Trump in the House after January 6th. And I believe only one is still in Congress. One. So those individuals, you go against Donald Trump, you better make sure that you are you're squared away with your base, or you have other plans after you do so. So I think that may be part of the problem why individuals think that they can't say anything. I think it's a lack of spine. It shows their character. You go to Congress to represent the people, not to bow, metaphorically speaking, to a wannabe dictator. And that's a wannabe dictator. He said he wanted to be a dictator. So that's not me describing him in anything else that he's called himself.
Got time for maybe one or two more? Okay. Well, thank you guys for being here today.
Thank you all.
Thank you.